Well, friends, thanks so much for tuning in. We're very grateful to have back on the line our good friend Gerald Celente from the Trends Research Journal. We also have on the line our friend and contributor Mark S. Mann. First, we'll say hi to Mark. How are you, Mark?
Hey, everybody.
Hey, glad to have you on the line here, Mark. You and Gerald have connected in person before. You guys have become fast friends. Gerald Celente is certainly a friend to everybody in the truth movement. Gerald, how are you?
I'm very well. Thanks for having me back. Good to be with you and Mark.
We're privileged to have you back, Gerald. I want to thank Zeke for setting up this call as well. Gerald, I was looking at your top trends for 2015. I know that high on the list is bankism, and let's talk about that here in a second. But I wanted to know if you've seen this poll from Gallup. What do you think has Americans most dissatisfied right now, Gerald? Do you think it's unemployment or the economy? Nope, that's number 3 and number 2. The number one thing that has people most dissatisfied is government itself. Does that Gallup poll surprise you at all, Gerald?
No, it's been going on a long time. I mean, we're looking at the inepts and the incompetents, the Republicans and the Democrats, or as I would prefer to call them, the Bloods and the Crips, the murderers and thieves. They murder millions of people in the name of bringing freedom and democracy to a country near you, and steal our money in the names of too big to fail bailouts, loan guarantees, special tax breaks, and other dirty deals. And the people know it because you look at the economy and look how people are suffering, barely making ends meet, not making ends meet, still losing their homes, losing their jobs. And when they do find a job, it's a lousy one. And who do they blame? They blame the government. And rightfully so, but also the people better start blaming themselves as well, because they're tolerating it and they keep voting the criminals into office.
Yeah, there's a revolving door of criminals in office. It seems really hard to get rid of them. I know that Mark had read something very entertaining that sort of piggybacks on this Gallup poll. Mark, what was that you were reading?
Yeah, it was an article that came out of Reuters, and basically the gist of the article was that the fictional presidents and fictional world leaders had a higher approval rating than Obama does. That many times higher. Where people like the president on 24 and the West Wing were much more socially accepted, and the people thought that they were doing a much better job fictionally than our actual leaders do.
Yeah, it's one after another. And look at the people we're supposed to look up to: Obama, Bush, Clinton, Pelosi, Feinstein. I mean, go up and down the list. McConnell, Lindsey Graham, John McCain. How could a self-respecting person look up to these lowlifes? That's the way I look at it. And you know our motto, think for yourself. If you think they're great, good for you. And again, people buy the BS. People ask me, what business should I get into? I get into the one that's you could do really stupidly. You could be inept, and you get great results. Sell propaganda. It's the easiest thing to do. And that's all these politicians do. They sell propaganda, fear, hate, and control. So that's what we have. And you can see where society's going. There's no dignity to the office of president anymore. Could you imagine Eisenhower playing a saxophone like Bill Clinton with stupid sunglasses on, or yucking it up with Conan O'Brien or Kimmel, or boogieing with Ellen DeGeneres, whatever her name is? I mean, could you imagine? Could you imagine Eisenhower stooping so low?
Well, you bring up a great point, Gerald, when you say that people have to start to look to themselves, because you know as well as I do that the incumbent rate is usually 95 to 97%. And the American people, like a lot of other people on the planet, have a real short memory, especially when it comes to the issues.
Oh, exactly. You're right. And what you just said about those re-election rates, when I was a kid growing up, they used to say they had an election in the Soviet Union. 94, 95% of the people got reelected. What an election. Yeah, I guess this is the USSA now. And again, it goes back to dignity and respect. Look what the people have become to look like in this country. They say that pigs can't fly. Oh, yeah? You've been on a plane lately? Been to the airport? It's a disgrace the way people look. It's a disgrace the way they act. All I do is see people eating, drinking, and texting, they're out of their minds. So you could really easily sway them into any direction. That's the good part of it, by the way, because now the vacuum is so large, it could be filled with anything. And I really believe that now is the time for a new third party more than any time I've ever seen in my life. And I have a pretty good track record at this because I predicted a new third party in 1988 in my book Trend Tracking that I wrote in 1988. I predicted there'd be a new third party in 1992. And for some reason, I mentioned Ross Perot's name in talking about it. Right now, the conditions are even better than they were back then. Well, no one is excited about another Bush or another Clinton. No one is excited that I know of about a little Teddy Cruz or a Marco Rubio or a flip-flop Rand Paul. I'll go wherever I can go with this. His is what he showed. He's gone back on virtually everything he's promised to get into that so-called mainstream. There's no one of any credibility that's going to really change this. And with the people looking so lowly at Congress, this is the time for positive change.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more, Gerald. Now, I was nodding my head when you were talking about the need for a third party, and you say there's never been a better time. I agree with you as it pertains to those of us within the truth community, those of us who in the alt media know what's really going on. But if you watch CNN or Fox News, take for instance that deplorable show on Fox called The Five. You've got these fat cats, essentially, many of whom are either former government officials or part of the corporatocracy or formerly part of the corporatocracy, sitting around talking about what they want their viewers to believe are topical real news events in their commentary on them. And essentially what it is propaganda. And they will, with a straight face, shove down the throats of the American people Jeb Bush and Hillary Clinton. So will CNN, so will MSNBC. So how are we to get any third-party traction when the corporatocracy and the corporate media is absolutely aligned against the people and absolutely in bed with the bankster class whose candidates are Jeb Bush and Hillary Clinton?
You're seeing it happening in France with Le Pen's party. You're seeing it in Spain with Podemos. You saw what happened in Greece with Syriza. You're seeing it in Italy with both the Five Star Movement and the Northern League. You're seeing it in the UK with UKIP. So the opportunity's there. Mm-hmm. And all it needs is the right people to push it. You know, I read something about Castro. He was saying that when the revolution, he said he did it with about 80 people. He said all he really needed was about 12 to 15. And that's all you need. Yeah. It just has to be a cohesive group. The people are ready. These guys and girls on the prostitutes, as I call them, on CNN and the mainstream media, MSNBC, Fox, and the rest. I mean, you could run right over them. Really, they're there and they're doing as they're told and do what they need to do to keep their jobs. So when you have a movement going, you're going to look at the ratings and how much they've gone down with all of the mainstream media and how people are going to alternative media. So if the alternative media bill's big enough, that's where you can see the revolution happening. The time is right. I haven't seen the right candidate come out yet that could really bring the people together.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you. Who would that candidate be? Because
I don't see it.
Yeah, and that's a big problem. And you noted in your latest trends research release that I was reading earlier today, central bank protests in Frankfurt. The people were protesting the new $1.4 billion central bank building opening, but Gerald, they weren't really protesting a building, were they? They're protesting a concept, and it's a concept we don't see people protesting here in this country.
Well, as I say, my blood is Italian, but my heart's American. And, so with my blood being Italian, we like to maintain our identity. Italians don't want to become part of Brussels. And France, you think they want to be part of Brussels or the Germans or any nationality that builds itself from its heritage and its ancestry and its culture? Do you think they want to be amalgamated into one? And that's what this protest is really about. It's the becoming of the one. You know, I wrote about the Eurozone and the Euro group, the people that would join the Euro, when it was in development. And I wrote about how and why it was going to happen and how and why it would hurt. People forget that the euro currency came about as a fear tactic, because the people that were old enough in those days, back in the early 90s, that really pushed this through were children or young adults primarily during World War II. And they lived through that massive destruction and the murder by the millions and the tens of millions. And they were sold the lie that by having a common currency, there would be a high unlikelihood of a future European war. That's how they sold it. And now we're seeing it's not working at all. It was a big lie. It was to rob the people of their freedom and their sovereignty, because it's the golden rule. If you're not ruling your gold, the one that has the gold rules, and Brussels has the gold. So that's why you're seeing these protests, and they're real. And America doesn't have it because I really believe that this country's gone so low in hanging on to what made it great. The past is over. Young people have no point of reference, where in Europe they still do. And I say that because a young person, for example, how do they know when they used to have mom and pop shops? They don't have a clue. All they grew up with was drugstores. No, they got CVS, they got Walgreens and Rite Aid. They no longer have the neighborhood drugstore. They don't have the dress shop or the haberdasher. They have Targets, they have Kohl's, they have Walmarts. They have no points of reference that brought individuality and growth to the human spirit. There used to be hardware stores. Well, now they have Lowe's and they have Home Depot. What happened to the little hardware stores that dotted everywhere? Well, they went the same place as the stationery stores. Then now you have Staples and Office Depot, and now they're going to merge. So you asked me why it's not happening here. And I'm saying it's not happening here because there's been a death of the human spirit in America, the death of the American spirit. We become a nation that's become militarized from, as Dr. Paul Craig Roberts wrote now at Trends Journal several issues ago, Cops Gone Wild, to the continuation of United States military intervention around the globe. So we've lost our spirit of the founding fathers and what this nation was built upon. And I know the negatives, believe me, but there were positives, and it was the land of opportunity. That land of opportunity is gone. Now it's become Slavelandia. Get a job. We're going to pay you $9 an hour, and if you're a good boy or girl, next year you'll make 10.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. Gerald, piggybacking on what you have just said there, we've lost our spirit. America has lost its way. Where we used to have a history of honest money, it's been replaced by the central banking fiat schemes. Where we used to have so many good things that the founders gave us, we now have Minuteman III intercontinental ballistic missiles. We have the test we saw where the Air Force is flexing its offensive muscle and literally say that they did it so the world could see how quickly and accurately we could strike anywhere on the planet. I feel like that is a reaction to the world moving away from the dollar. We see the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, where France, Germany, and Italy have joined the UK in agreeing to join AIIB. Am I overstating the fact here that I feel like America has nothing left but nuclear missiles to threaten the rest of the world with? And specifically, what is your take on the future of the dollar?
Well, you know, it's the madmen are in charge. You know, they got this guy that's the commander of NATO. You can't make this one up. The NATO commander, Admiral, Major General or something. His last name is Breedlove.
Yeah.
And you listen to him. How about Strangelove?
Yeah.
I mean, this guy's the perfect character for it. He comes out every couple of weeks lying about what Russia's doing in Ukraine. And no one calls him out in the carpet except Der Spiegel did about a week ago, saying this guy's, he's fabricating this stuff. So you have the military-industrial complex. And it's what Eisenhower warned us about. Mm-hmm. It's happened. We've lost the genius of the scientists. It's going into the missiles that you were talking about, the sweat of the laborers, and the future of the children. We've been robbed of it. So does anybody that has more than a third grade education and that has a brain between their ears think that the United States or anybody is going to defeat Russia? If you do, go over there and lead the charge. Because if Napoleon couldn't pull it off, if Hitler couldn't pull it off with the greatest offensive military initiative in world history, you'd think the American military is going to pull it off. They haven't won a war since World War II. They lost in Vietnam, and I used to hear, oh yeah, but you didn't give us the power to Agent Orange more of the joint. When we only killed 3 million, we needed to kill 23 million. And then they lost Afghanistan, and we're still there because backtrack Barack, remember he was going to bring down the troops to half, and now they're keeping them there. We lost in Iraq, now we're back there. Who in their right mind thinks they're going to beat Russia?
No, you're right. And you say in the latest journal, stop poking the Russian bear. They're not going anywhere, and neither is Putin. We need peace, not propaganda. You couldn't have said it better because that's exactly what the world needs. Mark, I'm going to throw it over to you before we lose Gerald.
Yeah, well, that's actually, speaking of Mad Men and militarization and the path to war, the one thing that I wanted to do was get Gerald to comment on a couple things. And first, we have the re-election of Benjamin Netanyahu, which is now really pushing harder than ever for more war and more conflict. And I would like Gerald to discuss his opinion on the concept of not agreeing with Israeli policy on the Palestinian issues and not financially and military supporting Israel is getting people lumped into being a liberal now and getting associated with people like Nancy Pelosi. And lastly, the one thing I wanted Gerald to talk about was, one thing that the prostitutes in the media never mention is that Israel is one of the top 10 largest arms producers in the world. Tiny little Israel. So the United States military is constantly supplying Israel with everything from small arms to smart munitions and ordnance. And how is it that the United States could be part of the peace process when, one of the chief negotiators, it's like saying my drug dealer or my bartender is going to help me get over my alcohol problem, right? And, can we talk about why does the United States have to give $6 billion of military aid to Israel when they're one of the top 10 largest arms producers in the world? What the hell do they need our help for?
Yeah, great question.
Well, first of all, I'm against giving money to Israel as I'm against giving it to any other country. This country's rotting in front of us. The infrastructure stinks. The country's going downhill. I don't want my money going to Israel, to Italy, to Ireland. I don't want it going anywhere. And when you talk about Israel, the people try to attack you with this cheap BS line of anti-Semitism. Let's get this straight. Israel's a country. It's not a religion. Just as I criticize what's going on in America doesn't make me anti-American. If I was old enough when what was going on in Europe in World War II, and I was opposed to Hitler, that wouldn't make me anti-German or Mussolini anti-Italian. So save it for somebody else. And number two on that number, when you look at the people, the colonizers of Israel, they're Ashkenazi Jews. They didn't convert to Judaism until the end of the first century, around 800, 900 AD. So stop with this anti-Semitism. Ben Gurion, Golda Meir, Netanyahu, Omer, Sharon, go up and down the list. I think with the exception of Begin, he was Polish. They're not Semites. So you can't be an anti-Semite if you call Netanyahu a mass murderer. If you want to call me an anti-Ashkenazi, then you got a case, maybe. But let's call a spade and a mass murderer a mass murderer. They killed over 2,000 Palestinians in September and August of last year, under the belief that Hamas killed 3 teenagers. Oh, I got it. 3 teenagers were killed by Hamas. Let's say it was true. Where were they killed? Well, in the occupied West Bank. What do you mean occupied? What are you doing over there? Oh, we stole the land. We're colonizers. And they killed 3 of you guys? And because we killed them in the West Bank, we're going to destroy Gaza. Hey, Gaza's not the West Bank. But that's all right. We're going to level some 90,000 homes. We're going to kill mostly civilians. And no one's going to say anything about it. It's mass murder. It's genocide. And I'm tired of the settler story. Let's call it stealing land. You know, Le Pen over there in France just had an election, and they call her, anti-Muslim. And she got 25% of the vote. They expected her to get 30. I said to myself, she should have used Netanyahu's campaign manager. Just as the election was ready to roll, the day of the election, she should have came out and said, pull it from Netanyahu. The Muslims are going to the polls in droves. The National Front is in danger of losing. Go to the polls. What outrage there would have been. But Netanyahu could say this about the Arabs. Not even a peep. Israel is an apartheid state. The proof is there for everyone to see. Save your fairy tales for somebody else. I know. God was a real estate agent, and the Bible was a land deed. And the whole world began, I think it was around 3000 BC. Stop with this. It's murder, it's colonization. It's no different than when the Catholics went into another country or the other colonizers with their fairy tale of why they were going to overthrow a people, run and ruin them because they had their own trip. So enough of this. And what we're looking to, if people were going to ask me, what's the flashpoint, and going back to your question about nuclear war and what could happen, I believe Israel is the one to watch with the finger on the trigger. How many times does Netanyahu got to get out there warning us? Remember when he came out with that cartoon bomb at the UN?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
This to me, because they also have, what wasn't mentioned, how many nuclear arms they have.
Probably
and they're calling
400.
An estimated 400. And they have not signed the nuclear non-proliferation agreement.
Gerald, they don't sign any treaties. I could tell you one thing about the Israelis. They have more opportunities to sell weapons anywhere in the world because they don't sign any of the treaties. They're everywhere.
That's a very good point, because they were also the biggest supplier of arms to South Africa during the height of apartheid.
That's right.
So,
and Gerald,
maybe it's in that Ashkenazi blood. They like that apartheid trip. I've had enough of this.
Yeah, the rules don't apply.
And I also have to say, I was outraged at the traitors of the United States bringing this guy into our house in Washington, the people's house, to sell his propaganda, Netanyahu.
Yeah.
Every one of those congressmen and senators are traitors to this country and the principles of the founding fathers.
Well, I was going to
Absolutely.
ask you about that specifically, Gerald, because I wanted your opinion on Obama. Is it just theater that Obama does not seem to be playing ball with Netanyahu and in fact has sort of an animus against Netanyahu? Because the Congress, you're right, bends over backwards to Israel. Is it theater that Obama isn't? He's playing hardball with Netanyahu.
What hardball? They keep stealing land, we keep giving them money, and they do anything that they want. What peace process? You look at the size of what Israel was in 1948, and look how big it is now. Look at what they've done to the Palestinian people. Oh, Obama is just nothing, man. He didn't come out against the racial slur. It wasn't big news. Could you imagine? Hey, I'll tell you, man, them Arabs, if their skin was a couple of shades darker, then it would have been an issue, maybe. Hey, but they were going to the polls in buses. Hey, they have to ride in the back of the bus? Come on. This thing should have been blown headlines. As I said, could you imagine if Le Pen said, the Muslims and the Jews are going to the polls in France and our national front is in danger of losing and they're being bussed there by the UMP party? Oh, Maron, would you have heard that's another thing. Talking about anti-Semitism, this guy Weinstein or whatever he is from Hollywood, he came out yesterday or 2 days ago and said that we have to form a mafia against anti-Semitism to his buddies in Hollywood. A mafia? Why don't you call your own clan? But no, you got to put the Italian label on it. Mafia? What's Hollywood? Weinstein.
Yeah, you can't criticize Israel at all in certain parts of. No, I'm saying though they're outlawing it in certain parts of Europe. You literally will no longer have free speech against this precious state.
They outlawed it in France, and it was the hypocrisy with the Charlie Hebdo thing. When people came out and did anti-Semite things, they were banned or even had a flavor of it. But you could go after the Muslims.
The last thing I want to say about the Palestinian thing is that, every time, if you're a Palestinian, every time you look up and you see your people getting stabbed, bombed, shot, whatever, it's always usually from an American product. And I think that at the end of the day, what Americans need to realize is that type of foreign policy probably has a lot more to do with why we have, quote, terrorism instead of people believing that, they hate us for our freedom, as Gerald likes to talk about. So,
of course. Yeah, it's the same thing with ISIS and all of this. How many people have Americans killed in Iraq? An estimated 1 million. In Afghanistan. Destroyed everything that they have. Put in governments that are puppet governments that throw these people in jail and torture them. You think if we were them, we'd want to kill the people that did it to us too? That destroyed our country, our families, and our future? I mean, it's just going on and on and on. I've had enough. Again, I honor thy founding fathers. No foreign entanglements. Stay home. Rebuild America. I'm not an isolationist. I just don't want to get in anybody else's fight. It's not mine. I'll protect America. What are we doing in these countries? You can't fix Detroit, and they're going to fix a problem over there in a foreign country. And now Yemen. It's just going to continue. And again, my greatest fear is through Israel, with their finger on the nuclear trigger and someone like as nutty as Netanyahu being in charge. He's proven himself with his statements. By their deeds you shall know them. There will be no Palestinian state, and the Arabs are going to the polls in droves.
Well, you sound pretty extreme there, Mr. Celente. It's the same reason the Mockingbirds told us Ron Paul couldn't be elected, because he wanted to bring the troops home and he wanted to end these wars, and he was called an unelectable extremist. If ever there was a chance for an honorable president in the White House, it's my belief it was Ron Paul, and we all know what they did to him. It just breaks my heart. The other thing that breaks my heart is the most uncovered story. You talk about it in the Trends Journal. In 1960, only 5% of the children born were born into families without fathers, to unmarried mothers. Gerald, tell people what an epidemic that situation has become now today.
It's over 40%. 40% of the children are being born to unmarried mothers. They're usually poor, and the cycle of poverty continues itself. And now, of course, there's a whole issue that never existed before when I was a young guy in the terms of so many prescription drugs. These kids are whacked out. They have no parents. They have no father, you know, and they're putting them on all these psychotropic drugs to dull their minds. And they're coming from nothing and going nowhere. And there's this whole belief that, oh, a mother could raise a kid. Fine. From the beginning of civilization, it used to be men and women. It was called a family. So now the family is being disintegrated. I couldn't be me without my father, and I certainly couldn't be me without my mother. And both of what they gave me, may their souls rest in peace, because they gave me the masculine and the feminine energy to create who I am and become what I am. So these poor kids are growing up without any of that. And when I talked about the loss of the American spirit, there used to be a thing one time, hey, when father did know best, in the sense that my dad used to come home from work and we'd have all sit down around the dinner table. And we used to spend Sundays, we had a day of rest, and we'd all have a big meal on Sunday. All that's gone. And now it's going downhill. Because all America could talk about and all that they've become is the business of America has become war. And the business of China, as you can see, is going on with them, has become business. So until we get back to business and start taking care of our own, rebuilding America, I don't see any future here that's going to bring us to a higher level. And the fish rots from the head down. And at the top, boy, we got a lot of rotted heads, from the Republicans to the Democrats, inside out of Congress. It's a crime, and the governors in most of the states.
Yeah. Well, it breaks my heart to think of all of these single mothers with these children with no fathers, so many people living in poverty, and so many of these people having to live in hellish conditions in inner cities. And when this system finally breaks and the dollar loses its purchasing power, my God, what nightmares we're going to see in these big cities. It's just a Mad Max horror show waiting to happen. And I pray it doesn't go that way, but I think it's going to.
But it's up to the people to change it. And as I said, the opportunity now is better than ever. And I also want to remind everybody that we're making the Trends Journal available now to virtually anybody that wants to afford it. We have a lot of different payment schedules and opportunities. And it's the only place, and you see the magazine, there's nothing like it anywhere. It's history before it happens, and it will help you not only survive, but thrive and prevail during these difficult times. So I urge everybody to do what they can to get the Trends Journal. We give them trends in the news each weekday night, weekday broadcasts, and we give them a Trends Monthly, Trends Journal. And as Mark knows, we have conferences up here in Colonial Kingston, New York. So there's a lot there to offer.
Absolutely. And a man with courage, that's absolutely for sure. Gerald Celente has been our guest. You know he's got courage. If that's not clear to you, just re-listen to the interview. Our guest has been Gerald Celente and Mark Mann. Mark, thanks for joining us as well.
Thank you, and thank you, Gerald.
Gerald, thanks, man.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for supporting us at sgtreport.com. Have a great week.
Thanks a lot, man. All the best.
All right. Thanks, Gerald.
Yeah. Take care.
Thank you, Zeke.
Take care, Mark. Good luck to you.
Yeah, thanks. We'll be in touch.
Bye.